Hi, I'm Jeremy, the Zoo Nerd, coming to you from my backyard in Los Angeles, California. How's everybody doing today? I hope you're well. I hope you're happy, healthy, and having fun. Today we're going to talk about a very adorable little species of monkey called squirrel monkeys. Squirrel monkeys are known for their curiosity, for their cuteness, and for being very smart. They're a small monkey. They come from Central and South America, and they are little. They only weigh about 1 to 2 pounds, with a male during breeding season possibly getting close to that 3-pound mark, but still very little. They're about 12 to 16 inches long for their body, with a tail that's almost as long, so like a 12 to 15, 16-inch long tail as well. Unlike some other South American monkeys, they can't hold on to anything with their tail, but their tail is very important for balancing, and they are really great at running and jumping through the trees, moving quite a bit like a squirrel, hence their name. What else? They live in groups called troops. A troop of squirrel monkeys can be anywhere from about 7 to 10 up to 100 or more. Typically, if it's a very big group, that's actually multiple smaller groups that have come together to feed in an area where there's a lot of food. They're kind of grayish brown, yellow color, with short fur, white underneath, and yellow on their arms and legs. With that kind of darker color on their back, like the grayish color on their back and the white underneath, that is something that scientists call counter shading. And we talk about it a lot with ocean animals. I know I talked about it with penguins. I've talked about it with several other species, but it's important for monkeys as well. As they have predators above them and predators below them, they need to try to blend in a little bit more. And so that lighter color underneath kind of blends in with the brighter, lighter colored sky above them. And with the darker color on their back, that kind of helps them blend in as you look down through a forest where there's more shadows and shade. That kind of helps them to hide a little better from different types of predators. They are very, very vocal. They make over 25 different distinct sounds. Scientists who have researched that have actually defined it as language. The sounds have meaning. Some of those could be alarm calls. Some of those could be calls around food, saying, hey, there's food over here, come join me. Or, hey, this is our food, stay away if you're not part of our group. There's also very distinct calls made for between a mom and her baby of, hey, where are you? Especially once that baby gets to be a bit bigger and starts to wander off. With their alarm calls, those are calls they make when there's a threat of danger nearby. They have distinctly recognized that there's at least 3 of those. One which means a bird up above, like a bird of prey, something like a harpy eagle, which is common throughout most of their range. Or other birds that could come down into the trees to grab the monkeys. When that sound is made, all monkeys immediately move down very, very quickly because they know that birds are going to react very quick. There's also a sound they make for a snake. Typically, a snake would be on the ground or in lower levels starting to come up the trees to where they are. They typically, when they make a snake alarm sound, they gather into a group and try to intimidate the snake. They'll do things like dropping things on the snake or throwing things at the snake, really kind of screeching about the snake being there so that the snake knows its cover's been blown and it may decide to go somewhere else to find food. Their other alarm call that they make is for a cat. There would be jungle cats in most of their area where they live, things like jaguars, but also smaller cats like an ocelot. And they have the ability to react to that, make that call, and then they would kind of all look to see where that cat is from whoever first identified it. They have extremely good vision. They have good color vision. Some research suggests that their color vision is better than humans, which would be very helpful for them in distinguishing the different colors between like the newest, brightest leaves on a tree that would have more moisture in them, and also detecting how ripe fruit is from a far distance. Those would both be very important things as they are omnivores. That means they'll eat a little bit of everything. Fruits, leaves, seeds, nuts, flowers, insects, eggs from birds themselves, small lizards, maybe some small mammals. So they will go after things that are kind of close in their same size. And it's pretty remarkable. They're really great hunters when they are looking for more protein for their food. With squirrel monkeys, primatologists, those are the people who study primates or monkeys, lemurs, and apes, they have identified that squirrel monkeys have the largest brain compared to their body size ratio, even greater than humans have, suggesting that they are indeed very intelligent animals. They have really good skills at problem solving and definitely some communication, and they are able to learn behaviors and pass that on to other monkeys. That's especially helpful when they're trying to open big nuts or seeds, or where to find food at certain times of the year, kind of mapping out their forest home and where they need to be at what time to get the best fruit and food. Out in their habitat, they live mostly in like a rainforest, jungle type habitat in Central and South America. And they will on occasion group up with other species of monkeys. Even though they're kind of some of the smaller monkeys, they can kind of hold their own because they're really quick, and they can move out to the little branches that some of the bigger monkeys won't be able to. Things like a howler monkey could never walk on a branch this little, but a squirrel monkey can because they're lighter weight. Same with like a monkey like a capuchin. Capuchin monkeys and squirrel monkeys are actually pretty closely related, and they understand each other's language. Although it's a different language, they can understand each other's alarm calls and react accordingly to them. With squirrel monkeys, they also have really long legs for their little bodies. That really helps them to be excellent jumpers. It's estimated that they can jump about 2 meters. That's about equivalent to like 7 feet, which is pretty good for an animal that's only a foot long. They can jump from tree to tree that far. Also, if they're going from a really high tree to a lower tree, if they're close together, they'll jump like a 12, 15 foot space. Kind of no problem. I've seen them do it. It's pretty impressive. In their social groupings, they have a social hierarchy, with males being the most dominant. Males are a bit bigger than females, and during the breeding season, he bulks up, so he's even bigger. And the dominant male during breeding season will chase the other males away. Even the teenage males that may be his sons, or a monkey that may be his brother, it's out. Whoever's the dominant monkey will chase the other males away. Sometimes he'll chase them away year-round, depending on the size of their habitat, the food availability, and how they function as a troop. If it's a small space, he'll chase all other males away. What else? Their breeding season is typically in what would be our fall, so September to November, with babies being born about 5.5 months later, specifically about 160 to 170 days. The babies are usually born at the time when there's a really big amount of food available that helps them to be able to learn how to find food fairly quick, and lots of nutrition for another mouth to feed. They only have one baby at a time. It's really rare that they have twins. If they have twins, it's most likely one or both will not survive. They're kind of a one baby at a time species. And that's because the baby is born pretty big compared to the mom, and it takes all of her time to take care of one baby. There's kind of no way possible for her to adequately take care of two. All care is provided by the mom. Dad's around, but he doesn't help. He'll scare off predators. That's about it. He'll help the group find food, but that's selfish as much as it is for the group. He's looking out for himself. So the babies, when they're born, they hold on really tight to their mom. They have really long legs and long arms right from the beginning. And their tail, when they're a baby, is a little more flexible. So they'll kind of wrap their tail around their mom just to give like a little extra support, kind of anchoring them to her. So that's typically riding around on her chest for the first little bit and then moving on to the back as they get bigger. They grow pretty quick. So within about a month of being born, they're starting to explore on their own. Their mom will kind of pick a tree with really close, dense leaves to hang out in and to sleep in during the night. And then the babies can kind of explore a little bit, starting about a month to 6 weeks old, with the baby coming back onto its mom's back whenever it's scared or whenever she's scared or whenever there's a sign of danger, up until they're about 3 or 4 months old. After that, the baby's kind of winged but stays near its mom and learning the tricks of where to find food and how to hunt for food. It's kind of each monkey for themselves to get their own food, but as a troop, they'll look for a tree with a lot of ripe fruit, and kind of as they move through their forest, they'll take advantage of anything that's food related along their movements. What else? They are independent, so they may leave their mom entirely at about a year old. Sometimes they'll wait around a little bit longer. If they're, females will also sometimes help each other out once the babies get a bit bigger, especially if it's a female who doesn't have a baby, and if there's a close relationship between those two females, like if they're sisters or if they're really good friends, and the one doesn't have a baby but the other does. The one without the baby may carry the baby for a bit, but the mom still feeds it. So a female baby monkey, as she gets older, if she's about a year old, she may stick around in case her mom has a new kid to kind of learn some of those parental mothering skills. Squirrel monkeys out in the wild, out in their rainforest habitat, typically live to be about 15 years old. In a zoo setting where they get medical care, don't have to worry about finding their food, don't have to compete with other animals for their food, and have everything kind of provided for them, no predators. They typically can live closer to 20 in a captive setting. In my time learning about squirrel monkeys, the thing that really kind of struck me as being the most interesting and odd behavior is something that they do to help keep track of a troop of monkeys as they move through the forest. And also kind of as a wayfinding place as to where the different group went. Maybe a monkey stopped on this branch over here to eat a piece of fruit, but the rest of the troop kept going. This monkey's gonna need to know where the troop went. And as the troop moves, they do something that's actually kind of very helpful, but pretty gross to us. It's called urine washing. Urine washing is where they pee on their hands and their feet, and then they rub that all over their feet, their hands, their tail. And then as they walk along the little branches, they leave a scent trail that all the monkeys can follow. That scent will stay on those branches for a couple of days. So if they are like, oh, we went over here to find food, this food's gone, there's danger in this area, let's go back to where we were a day before or 2 days before. They can smell their way back to where they were in case they weren't quite familiar with where they went in their habitat. With urine washing, it's a bit gross. It's definitely something that humans would frown upon, which really surprises me when I think about the greatest threat to squirrel monkeys is people wanting to have them as pets. Urine washing is an instinctual trait. That means they're all going to do it. There's no way to get rid of it. Even if it's a monkey by itself that was raised by humans, it's still going to do that because it is instinctual to pee on its hands and its feet and wipe that everywhere that they go. So people that have had squirrel monkeys as pets say that they're usually really stinky, and it stands to reason why. It's definitely a very helpful thing for monkeys out in the forest, it would not be so great in your living room or your bedroom. Their other main threat is habitat destruction or habitat loss. Some of these monkeys live in places near big cities in Central and South America, and places that have been heavily developed for agricultural purposes, growing different crops. And some of those are even things that we eat, even here in America, that have put some of the monkeys in jeopardy. So there's 5 different species of squirrel monkeys. There's one in Central America. Those are the most endangered. They live in Costa Rica and Panama. Some of their big threats are loss of habitat to grow things like bananas, some coffee, some sugar cane, some chocolate. All of those things are grown in tropical areas, and cutting down the forest where they live has put a big threat for those monkeys. Most of the other species of squirrel monkeys live further south into South America, the Amazon rainforest basin, the foothills of the Andes Mountains in Bolivia and Peru, and up into the northern parts of South America, the Guyanas, Colombia, Venezuela area. So as in general, squirrel monkeys are listed as either near threatened or vulnerable, with that population in Central America being endangered. Ways that we can all help out with squirrel monkeys is specifically when we're buying some of those things that come from a rainforest setting, check to make sure that it is sustainably sourced. So if you're a coffee drinker, figure out where your coffee is grown. Figure out how it's raised. Is it in a place where they cut down the forest to grow new coffee? Is it grown on other land that was previously agricultural? There's something really great that the coffee industry started doing a couple years ago called shade-grown coffee. That's where they grow coffee plants underneath big trees in the rainforest setting, and they leave a lot of the big native trees intact, so they can still grow coffee and raise coffee, but they're also allowing multiple other species of plants to grow in that area. That helps protect the coffee plants, but it also adds to the biodiversity of the area, provides home for monkeys and birds and many, many other species that need the rainforest environment. You can also look for sustainable sourced things like wood and paper. We've talked about that before with the FSC, the Forest Stewardship Council logo. It's a little tree with a green check mark by it. That's a really good way if you're buying any any wood or paper. Also check for chocolate. And places in South America have also struggled with growing things for palm oil. I think I've talked about palm oil quite a bit on the orangutan episode of Critter Chat, if you want to go back and look at that more. And it's a bigger problem in Southeast Asia. It is a problem in Central and South America as well. But we need to try to protect the rainforest. There's a lot of animals that live there, and the more we can protect, the more all those animals will be better off. As always, I like to talk a little bit about my experiences in zoo world with the species I talk about. And with squirrel monkeys, it is actually a species I've worked with possibly the most of any species. When I moved to Phoenix, Arizona in 2006, my first paid job at a zoo was at the Phoenix Zoo, and I was specifically hired to work in a walkthrough exhibit with squirrel monkeys, where the monkeys roam free in their habitat and people can go inside the exhibit and walk around with them. My job was in the education department to specifically work with helping people find the monkeys, answer questions about them, and make sure that people don't touch the monkeys and the monkeys don't touch the people. I worked in that space for quite a while, and I really enjoyed learning the monkeys, who they were, their group dynamics. During my time there, I could identify all of the monkeys that lived there. We got up to 21 monkeys during my time there. We had a breeding population, so we had a dad, we had multiple moms, and then we had 2 or 3 generations of babies during my time there. So it was really fun and exciting to watch a lot of these things that I've talked about happen firsthand. And even though we were in the middle of the desert in Phoenix, we would still see a lot of those natural behaviors from the squirrel monkey troop there at the Phoenix Zoo. Specifically, we would hear their alarm calls quite often. The most often that we heard was their bird of prey alarm call. We had a lot of hawks that lived in and around the zoo, and they would circle up over the zoo, typically hunting for things on the golf course that lived next to us, things like rabbits or other small desert creatures, squirrels, prairie dogs, that kind of thing, out in the deserty area. Those hawks actually are not able, they're physically not good enough to fly into a forested area. A monkey village where the monkeys lived had a lot of trees, so the monkeys were always safe. But the monkeys didn't always understand that they were safe. And so when they would see a bird up in the sky, they would shout their alarm call that there was a bird, and all the monkeys would immediately move lower. They would stop whatever they were doing. If there was food, they would leave the food. They would all rush to the middle of the trees where they knew that the bird would have the hardest time to get to where they were. And we never saw a bird go after the monkeys. The birds were out trying to find a rabbit or something else. But it was really remarkable to see how they worked together. If somebody spotted a predator, they'd sound the alarm. They'd all move very quickly. On occasion, we saw a snake at the zoo, and a snake would come into their exhibit on occasion, and they would usually gather in a tree branch above it. They would mob or get together as a group and shout at the snake. It was really interesting to see these little monkeys try to intimidate a snake. The snakes we had most often in the Phoenix Zoo were gopher snakes, which were typically looking for rodents, things like mice, rats, maybe a squirrel. And they were on the ground, so those snakes actually don't climb trees very well, and so there were no threat to the monkeys, but the monkeys behaved as if it was a snake that could come after them. And so they would sometimes like pull leaves off trees or break sticks and try to scare the snake away. They'd gather above it, they'd yell at it. At one point, there was a zookeeper who was hosing with the water in their exhibit, and it ran down a little ravine in the dirt trail in their exhibit, and the monkeys behaved as if that water running through the ravine in the trail was a snake, and it was really funny to watch them mob and sound their alarm calls over water that was in the shape of a snake. But definitely very interesting behaviors. We also saw them doing a lot of their parental behaviors of the moms raising the babies. It was always really cute to see the older kids start to help out when the babies got a little bigger. Some of the like teenage daughters would try to help carry the baby. Super cute, really interesting to watch. If you're ever at the Phoenix Zoo, I highly recommend you check out their Monkey Village exhibit. The Phoenix Zoo has recently reopened after being closed down for coronavirus. That exhibit is still closed because they're trying to limit social distancing, but you can see the monkeys from the overlook area, which is a great view. Also in that exhibit, there was a very large eucalyptus tree at the time I worked there, and we would sometimes see the monkeys go high up in the tree, like 30, 40 feet, and they would sometimes jump to the lower trees that were like 15 feet off the ground. So we did see some of those aerial jumps that the monkeys are capable of, and it was always pretty amazing to watch their skills. We would see some interesting group behaviors with them arguing with each other, especially if there was food. We'd see breeding behaviors and all sorts of interesting things that would happen given the different times of years, how they'd huddle up and stay closer together if it was a little cooler. It does get cold in Phoenix, specifically in the winter time, like December, January, and on a colder, rainy day, that's pretty chilly for a little monkey. So we did see that. It was a really great time to watch them in Monkey Village. Oh, and we would see them catch food on occasion. They were well fed at the zoo, but we had a lot of flowers that grew in the exhibit, and they would sometimes eat those flowers, but they would also search in the flowers for bugs, looking for bees or other insects in them. We saw them jump through the air. I saw one catch a grasshopper or a similar bug off of a branch and then land on a second branch. It was really great. I saw them catch, kill, and eat little songbirds several times, probably 4 or 5 times during my time there. And although they're little monkeys, they are definitely great hunters. Really cool species. I'll be sharing some information further on the Facebook profile later today. including a fun video, if I can find it, from the Phoenix Zoo, and some fun enrichment that they do. Enrichment is something in a zoo setting that helps stimulate the senses of the monkeys. So they give them novel objects and sometimes novel food choices to just kind of mix it up, give them some variety in their day, and also sometimes some puzzles or challenges to stimulate them mentally, help them use their eyesight, their dexterity of their hands, their sense of smell, other things that they would need to do out in the wild to just kind of keep their senses a little sharper. The Phoenix Zoo did a lot of really great fun things with the squirrel monkeys there during my time there, and it was always fun to watch when they had some fun things going on. So I'll be sharing some more information later today. Check that out on the Facebook profile. And until tomorrow, be happy, be healthy, have fun. Take care. Bye.